On August 31st, 1997, in a Paris tunnel, the most famous woman in the world died in a car crash. Within hours, a quarter of the world's population was mourning. Within days, a quarter of the world's population was asking, was it really an accident?
Chapter 1: The People's Princess.
To understand why so many people believe Princess Diana was murdered, you first have to understand what she represented. When Lady Diana Spencer married Prince Charles on July 29, 1981, she was 19 years old, a kindergarten teacher from an aristocratic family who seemed to step directly from a fairy tale into global consciousness. 750 million people watched the wedding at St. Paul's Cathedral. The dress had a 25-foot train. The glass coach carried her through streets lined with 1 million spectators. And from that moment, Diana belonged to the world in a way that no member of the British royal family had ever belonged to anyone. But fairy tales have a way of turning dark. The marriage was troubled almost from the beginning. Charles's relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles, the woman he had loved before, during, and after the wedding, became an open secret. Diana, isolated inside the rigid machinery of royal protocol, struggled with bulimia, depression, and the suffocating attention of a media that had created her and now consumed her. By the early 1990s, the marriage had collapsed. But Diana did something the royal family had never encountered. She fought back in public. She gave interviews. She challenged the institution. She transformed herself from a passive princess into an activist, campaigning against landmines, embracing AIDS patients, visiting the sick and the displaced. The divorce came in 1996. Diana was stripped of the title Her Royal Highness, but retained something far more powerful: the love of the public and a platform that terrified the establishment. In January 1997, she walked through a live minefield in Angola, wearing body armor and a protective visor as cameras broadcast the images worldwide. The British government and the international arms industry were furious. Diana was single-handedly turning public opinion against the lucrative landmine trade. By the summer of 1997, she was dating Dodi Fayed, son of Egyptian billionaire Mohammed El Fayed, owner of Harrods department store. The relationship sent shockwaves through the British establishment. The mother of the future King of England was in a relationship with a Muslim man whose father had been repeatedly denied British citizenship. Mohammed El Fayed had been locked in a bitter feud with the British establishment for years, convinced that racism and snobbery were behind the refusal of his citizenship application. Now his son was dating the most famous woman in the world, and the woman who would remain, no matter the divorce, the mother of the future king. The establishment had a problem. And then, on a hot August night in Paris, that problem vanished in a tunnel.
Chapter 2: The Night in Paris.
The facts of the final night are well documented, yet somehow every fact raises a new question. On Saturday, August 30, 1997, Diana and Dodi Fayed arrived at the Ritz Paris hotel after a Mediterranean cruise. That evening, they dined at the hotel's restaurant. Outside, a pack of paparazzi had gathered, 30 or more photographers on motorcycles and in cars, tracking Diana's every movement with the obsessive intensity that had defined her public life. At approximately 12:20 a.m. on Sunday, August 31, a plan was set in motion to leave the hotel through the rear exit on Rue Cambon, evading the paparazzi waiting at the front. A black Mercedes-Benz S280 was brought around. The driver was Henri Paul, the acting head of security at the Ritz, a man who, according to later blood tests, had a blood alcohol level 3 times the French legal limit and traces of antidepressants in his system. This is the first of many facts that conspiracy theorists seize upon. Why was a man in this condition chosen to drive the most famous woman in the world? Henri Paul had been off duty that evening and was specifically called back to the hotel to serve as driver. Who called him back and why has never been satisfactorily explained.
At 12:23 a.m., the Mercedes entered the Pont de Alma tunnel at high speed. What happened inside that tunnel in the next few seconds would become one of the most investigated traffic accidents in history. The car struck the 13th pillar of the tunnel at an estimated speed of 65 miles per hour. Henri Paul and Dodi Fayed were killed instantly. Diana's bodyguard, Trevor Rees-Jones, the only occupant wearing a seatbelt, survived with catastrophic injuries. Diana was critically injured, but alive. She was still alive when the first emergency responders reached the car. She was still alive when she was extracted from the wreckage. She was still alive during the ambulance ride to the Pitié-Salpêtrière Hospital, an ambulance ride that, conspiracy theorists point out, took an extraordinarily long time. The hospital was 4 miles from the crash site. The ambulance took 1 hour and 43 minutes to complete the journey. Diana arrived at the hospital at 2:06 a.m. She was pronounced dead at 4 a.m. on August 31, 1997. She was 36 years old.
Chapter 3: The Conspiracy Theories.
The conspiracy theories began almost immediately and have never stopped. The most prominent was championed by Mohammed Al-Fayed himself, who spent over a decade and millions of pounds promoting his belief that his son and Diana were murdered by MI6 on the orders of the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip. Al-Fayed's theory was specific. The royal family could not tolerate the prospect of the mother of the future king marrying a Muslim man and potentially bearing a half-sibling to the heir to the throne. The assassination, according to Al-Fayed, was carried out by making the crash look like an accident, and the key anomalies in the official account supported this theory. Henri Paul, the driver, had unexplained wealth in multiple bank accounts. Where did the money come from? His blood alcohol level was contested. Some experts argued the samples were contaminated or even switched. The mysterious White Fiat Uno that witnesses reported seeing in the tunnel, which appeared to have made contact with the Mercedes, was never definitively identified. And then there was Diana's own prediction. In a letter written in October 1996, 10 months before her death, Diana wrote that she believed a plot was being organized against her and that it would involve a car accident. That letter was revealed by Diana's butler, Paul Burrell, in 2003.
The anomalies continued to accumulate. Multiple witnesses reported seeing a bright flash of light inside the tunnel just before the crash, consistent, conspiracy theorists argued, with an anti-personnel flash gun used by intelligence services to blind drivers. The tunnel's CCTV cameras were reportedly not functioning that night. The Mercedes had been stolen and recovered months earlier, and some argued it had been tampered with during that period. Henri Paul's autopsy results were questioned by independent experts who suggested the carbon monoxide levels in his blood were inconsistent with a living person. The ambulance took 103 minutes to travel 4 miles. The British and French investigations reached the same official conclusion. It was a tragic accident caused by a drunk driver being pursued by paparazzi. but the investigations themselves raised questions. Operation Paget, the Metropolitan Police investigation led by Lord Stevens, took 3 years and cost over £4 million. The inquest jury in 2008 returned a verdict of unlawful killing due to grossly negligent driving by Henri Paul and the paparazzi vehicles, but notably, several jurors later expressed discomfort, suggesting the full truth had not emerged.
Chapter 4: The Evidence and the Doubt.
The official investigations, French, British, and the 2008 inquest all concluded that Diana's death was a tragic accident. But each investigation also left loose threads that conspiracy theorists have been pulling ever since. The case against conspiracy is substantial. Henri Paul was demonstrably intoxicated. None of the passengers were wearing seatbelts. The Mercedes was traveling at excessive speed through a tunnel with concrete pillars and no crash barriers. Paparazzi pursuit created a high-pressure situation that contributed to reckless driving. These are the facts of a preventable tragedy, not a sophisticated assassination. But the case for doubt is also substantial, and it goes beyond the anomalies already described. MI5 and MI6 had Diana under surveillance. This was confirmed during the inquest. British intelligence services monitored her phone calls, tracked her movements, and maintained files on her relationships and activities. The existence of this surveillance does not prove conspiracy, but it proves capability and interest. Richard Tomlinson, a former MI6 officer, testified that he had seen a document outlining a plan to assassinate a foreign leader using a technique identical to the Diana crash scenario, a staged car accident in a tunnel caused by blinding the driver with a strobe light. MI6 denied this claim. Tomlinson was later imprisoned under the Official Secrets Act.
Chapter 5: The Questions That Remain. Nearly 3 decades after the crash in the Pont de Alma tunnel, the conspiracy theories surrounding Princess Diana's death remain as potent and as divisive as ever. Polls consistently show that between a quarter and a third of the British public believes Diana was murdered. In some countries, the figure is higher. The persistence of these beliefs reflects something deeper than the specific anomalies of the Paris crash. Diana represented a challenge to institutional power, and institutional power has a documented history of eliminating challenges. MK Ultra proved that governments will experiment on their own citizens. The assassination of JFK proved that official investigations can leave more questions than they answer. The surveillance state revealed by Edward Snowden proved that intelligence agencies monitor everyone all the time. In this context, the idea that the British establishment might arrange the death of a woman who threatened the monarchy, however outlandish it might seem, draws its credibility from a long list of confirmed institutional crimes. The truth about Princess Diana's death may be exactly what the official investigations concluded: a tragic accident caused by a drunk driver and aggressive paparazzi. But the fact that so many people, intelligent, rational people, cannot fully accept this conclusion tells us something important. It tells us that when institutions keep secrets, when investigations leave threads, when the powerful have both motive and capability, the space between accident and assassination becomes a territory that doubt will always inhabit. The tunnel is still there. The questions have never left.